Okay, what if I told you we could make the entire internet about 30% faster, like almost overnight, and do it without losing a single pixel of quality? Well, that's the promise of a technology that was, until very recently, left for dead. Today, we are diving into the absolutely wild comeback story of JPEG XL. So let's set the scene. It's October 2022, and this is the official line from the team behind Chromium. Now, if you don't know, Chromium is the engine that powers Chrome, Microsoft Edge, basically a massive chunk of the world's web browsers. And with this one sentence, they pretty much pulled the plug on a really promising new image format. So how in the world did we get from not enough interest to being on the verge of a new standard for the entire web? I mean, that's a stunning turnaround. To really get it, we've got to rewind the clock and look at what was happening back in 2022. All right, it all boils down to this one really controversial decision that almost buried JPEG XL for good. You know, the timeline of events here is just bizarre. First, the Chromium team asks the community for feedback. Then, an absolutely overwhelming wave of positive responses comes pouring in, and then they cancel the whole thing, citing a lack of interest. The official reasoning just made no sense. It didn't add up at all. And we're not talking about interest from a few random developers in their garages. These are industry heavyweights. You've got Meta, Intel, Adobe, plus the people behind massive software projects like FFmpeg. All of them gave it a big thumbs up, which is what made the decision to just drop it so baffling to everyone watching. But, as you can probably guess, the story didn't end there. A quiet but really persistent groundswell of support started to build, proving that JPEG XL was actually far from dead. This was the first crucial step. So even though the biggest browser on the block turned its back, a pretty significant slice of the web, about 17% of all users, could still use JPEG XL because Apple built it into Safari. That alone kept the format relevant and in the game. Then, another major player steps up. The team behind Firefox, who'd been kinda on the sidelines, suddenly signaled they were interested. But they had one condition. They wanted a more secure, what's called a memory-safe version. And that specific request actually kicked off a bunch of new development and showed the format was still very much alive and evolving. Now this was a huge turning point. Suddenly, the pressure wasn't just coming from web browsers. We're talking about the PDF, a universal standard for documents that we all use. The fact that they were endorsing JPEG XL, well, that was the ecosystem screaming its interest in a way that was basically impossible to ignore. And so, finally, after years of this steady pressure and just undeniable proof that adoption was growing, the Chromium team did a complete 180. They officially changed the format status from obsolete to assigned, which is code for, okay, we're working on this again. The community's persistence had actually paid off. So what is all the fuss about, right? What makes this one image format so special that an entire community of developers and companies fought for years to save it from the scrap heap? Well, it starts with an absolute killer feature, something no other modern format has. JPEG XL can take your old JPEGs, I'm talking about the trillions of them that make up the visual history of the internet, and it can recompress them into a smaller file without losing a single pixel of quality. It's like free data savings for the whole internet. And just how much savings are we talking about here? On average, you're looking at a 30% reduction in file size, instantly. That means websites can store all their existing images way more efficiently and serve them to you faster, all without any hit to quality. And its technical superiority goes way beyond that. Just look at this comparison of maximum image dimensions. JPEG XL can handle images over 1 billion pixels wide. Meanwhile, a modern competitor like AVIF taps out at just over 8,000. It's not even a fair fight. It is just in a completely different class. So look, JPEG XL isn't just a replacement for one kind of file. It's designed to be an all-in-one solution. It handles modern stuff like HDR color, it supports animation and transparency, and it even loads progressively so you see the image on your screen faster. Plus, it's super resilient to what's called generation loss. You know, when a picture gets blurrier each time you edit and resave it, yeah, it fixes that. So with all that in mind, what does this actually mean for the future of the internet? With Chromium finally back on board, the format has that last big push it needed. Because Chromium powers the huge majority of browsers out there, this single decision pretty much paves the way for JPEG XL to become the new universal standard for almost every image you see on the web. And why should you care? It's pretty simple, actually. It means the websites you visit will load quicker. The photos you see will look more vibrant, more detailed, with way better color. And all of this will happen while using less of your mobile data. It's a win-win-win for everybody. You know, it's pretty rare to see a community successfully push back and overturn a major decision made by a tech giant. The story of JPEG XL is about more than just a file format. It's a really powerful reminder that the future of the web isn't set in stone. It leaves us with a fascinating question. In the ongoing battle to define the internet's basic building blocks, who really should get the final say?